Welcome back to Apex Sci-Fi. In the galaxy, there is a distinct line between civilian and military. Most species have specialized castes. Poets don't fight and soldiers don't mine. To the Voracol Syndicate, a multi-planetary corporate empire, humans were seen as an unorganized, soft-bodied species that was far too easy to exploit. They assumed that a human miner was just a laborer, someone who would run the moment the first laser was fired. They learned the hard way that for a human, work is just another word for preparation. Prospector's Peak was a jagged, resource-rich moon on the edge of the frontier. It was home to 500 human miners harvesting void iron, a mineral so dense it could only be extracted using high-pressure hydraulic drills and thermal lance charges. It was a miserable, airless rock with a gravity so low you had to maglock your boots to the floor just to eat lunch. The Voracol Syndicate wanted the moon. They didn't want a treaty. They sent a leasing authority fleet, which was just a fancy name for 3 heavy frigates and a legion of combat drones. "Attention, Terran squatters," the Syndicate voice boomed over the emergency radio. "Your presence here is a violation of Syndicate Claim 4B. You have 10 minutes to board your transport ships. All equipment remains property of the Syndicate. Resistance will be met with lethal correction." Foreman Iron Mike Kowalski, a man whose skin looked like weathered leather and whose hands were permanently stained with graphite, didn't look at the sky. He looked at his crew. "You heard the man," Mike said, his voice a low gravelly growl through the comms. "They want our equipment. They want our rock. What do you say?" A woman named Sarah, who operated a 20-ton earth mover loader, spit a glob of synthetic tobacco into her suit's recycler. "I say my mortgage is paid through the void iron in that vein, Mike. And I don't like being told to move." "Right then," Mike said, climbing into his Mk7 industrial exosuit. "Don't bother with the rifles. We only have 12 of them anyway. Grab the industrial gear. If it can crack a mountain, it can crack a drone." The Voracol landed their first wave of compliance walkers, sleek, spindly 3-legged machines armed with rapid-fire pulse lasers. They marched toward the primary mining shaft, expecting to find cowering laborers. Instead they found the wall. 5 human mammoth loaders were lined up, their heavy bucket shields raised. Behind them Mike stood in his exosuit. His suit wasn't built for combat. It was built for the crushing pressures of deep-core mining. It was armored in 3-inch thick lead-lined steel meant to withstand rockfalls and radiation. Correction initiated, the Voracol lead drone chirped. It fired a pulse laser at Mike's suit. The laser hit the heavy steel plating, leaving a glowing orange scorch mark. Mike didn't even stumble. He just felt the vibration through his controls. "My turn," Mike grunted. He engaged the suit's boring drill. The 3-meter-long tungsten carbide bit began to spin, the sound a rising, terrifying shriek that vibrated through the very bedrock of the moon. Mike ignited the suit's magjets, launching his 5-ton frame forward in the low gravity. He didn't fire a shot. He simply shoved the spinning drill into the center of the first Voracol walker. The alien machine was built of lightweight, high-tensile alloys designed for speed and grace. It was not designed to withstand a tool meant to grind through solid obsidian. The drill tore through the walker's chassis in a spray of sparks and blue hydraulic fluid. Mike didn't stop. He used the suit's hydraulic claw to grab the second walker by its head, and crushed it like an aluminum can. "Miners, flank him," Mike roared. The siege turned into a chaotic industrial brawl. The humans weren't using military tactics. They were using extraction protocols. Sarah drove her earth mover into the center of a drone swarm. She wasn't shooting. She was using the loader's massive magnetic pulse, usually used to clear metallic dust, to fry the drone's internal circuits. They fell from the sky like dead flies. Other miners used thermal lances, tools that fired a 6-foot beam of 10,000-degree plasma. Usually used to melt through ore veins, they were now being used to slice through the Syndicate's invincible frigates as they tried to hover low for troop deployments. They are using excavators," a Syndicate commander screamed over the comms. "Sir, my armor plating is being bypassed by a pressurized water jet. They are cutting my soldiers in half with cleaning equipment." The Voracol realized they had made a catastrophic error. They had assumed that unarmed meant harmless. They forgot that for humans, a tool is just a weapon that hasn't been used in anger yet. The turning point came when the Syndicate deployed their Enforcer mech, a 10-meter-tall war machine designed for planetary subjugation. It stepped onto the lunar surface, its heavy rail cannons leveling the mining barracks in a single volley. Mike Kowalski looked at the remains of his home. He looked at the mech. "Sarah, give me a boost." Sarah swung the massive arm of her earth mover, and Mike's exosuit stepped onto the bucket. With a roar of hydraulics, she launched him through the low gravity. Mike soared through the air, his drill spinning at maximum RPM. The Enforcer mech tried to track him, but its sensors were calibrated for high-speed missiles, not a 5-ton man in a mining suit screaming a Polish war cry. Mike slammed into the mech's shoulder. He jammed his drill into the primary power coupling. The diamond teeth of the drill bit met the Syndicate's energy core. Boom. The explosion wasn't big, but the secondary feedback fried every Syndicate machine on the moon. The remaining Voracol mercenaries, stripped of their drones and their mechs, looked out at the humans. They saw 500 miners, covered in graphite dust and lunar grease, wielding sledgehammers, drills and lances. The Volca threw down their guns. They surrendered. When the Syndicate CEO arrived 3 days later to negotiate the incident, he found the human miners sitting on the wreckage of his frigates, eating sandwiches and using his leasing authority flags as rags to clean their boots. You used mining equipment to destroy a military legion, the CEO stammered, his eyes twitching. This is a violation of interstellar trade laws. This equipment is not rated for combat. Mike Kowalski stepped forward, his exosuit's drill still stained with alien oil. He looked the CEO in the eye. On this rock, the gear is rated for whatever we need it to do, Mike said. You saw laborers. You saw civilians. But on Earth, we have a saying, if you want to keep your head, don't mess with the people who move mountains for a living. We know how things are built, pal. Which means we know exactly how they break. The Voracol Syndicate abandoned their claim to Prospector's Peak. The Galactic Council officially issued a warning to all corporate entities. Do not engage human industrial colonies. A human with a deadline and a power tool is more dangerous than a soldier with a rifle. Mike and his crew went back to work. They had to mine and mortgages to pay. But as they worked, they kept their drills polished and their lances charged. Because they knew that in the deep frontier, the line between a miner and a warrior is just a matter of who asks you to move. This has been Apex Sci-Fi. Never tell a human to pack their bags. We'd rather pack a punch. If you enjoyed this blue-collar victory, hit that like button. Comment below, what industrial tool would you use in a space battle? Subscribe for the next front, the Beast of Baron Gale. The drills are spinning. The peak is ours.